I'm Camille Moseley. I'm a mom, kind of what we were talking about earlier. I work at Norton Brownsboro Hospital. I'm an occupational therapist. So I do a lot of neuro rehab for patients that have had strokes or brain bleeds or traumatic brain injuries, things like that. And then in my free time, I started bodybuilding. So this started, was interested in it in 2020. That's kind of when it started for me. But I had with COVID happening, the start of that, I think it was like a week or two before that blew up in the United States. My husband had a major injury. He had bilateral patellar tendon complete ruptures. Wow. So I was in the middle of like starting to work with Neil, and then he had his accident. And usually what would happen is someone would go to rehab. I was like, I don't want to send you to rehab. Like, I'm a therapist. This is what I do. So we set our house up for him to return home. So I was rehabbing him, working, and then COVID. So then I was homeschooling kids, and it was just like too much. And then ended up having some health issues myself. So I told Neil, I was like, hey, when, all this kind of settles down, like I would really love to return to this. It was just something I wanted to do at 40, like you have kids. And I think that you kind of go into like this mode for women where it was like, this is what being a mom looks like. And this is what being a wife looks like type of deal. So you start like backburnering things that you want for yourself, and you start prioritizing your family almost to like an extent that like you completely lose yourself, or at least I did. So I was like, when I turn 40, like I just want something that's like all mine. Like people call me Camille. They won't call me Sloane's mom or Mila's mom. So it was like something that I wanted. So after I got through all my health stuff, I had a couple surgeries and COVID kind of subsided and everything kind of went back to normal. Me and Neil started talking. I was like, okay, like I'm ready. Like, let's go. So I think maybe 6 weeks after my second thoracic surgery is when we started prep. So I'm like a year and a half into it now. I thought I would do one show and be done with it. So we did Kentucky Cup. And that ended up doing really well. So he said, what do you want to do, nationals? And I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe. And then we ended up doing it, and I loved it. So we did nationals in Pittsburgh. I did pretty well there. And then we went back and we did North American, and I did a little bit better there. So I think I took fourth in North American. I can't remember if it was like the 40 plus or 30. It was masters, 35 plus. And so it kind of like gave me like this hope of like, okay, like maybe I can get my pro card. So that's kind of like the road that we're on now.
Gotcha. So, even before kind of the bodybuilding thing, was the gym and like that kind of environment, I guess, somewhere that you like to be or wanted to be, or where did that kind of come from?
Not necessarily the gym. So I grew up out in Oldham County on a farm, like in the middle of nowhere. I grew up hunting and fishing, like very country. And I just loved being outside. And I was just a very competitive kid, very hyperactive child. So did sports all through grade school and high school. Mainly, I did cheer and dance. And then I went to U of L and I was a ladybird. And then after college, there was kind of like a lull of like, okay, I don't have to go to practice. Like you just go to work. I wasn't really doing much. And I really missed that like competitiveness. So I think like a lot of people, because it's just easy, I got into marathon running and I actually ended up being pretty good at it. So I qualified for Boston. I ran Boston in 2011. And then after that, I ended up running ultras. So I started running like 50 milers. But with kids, it was just hard to keep up with like that training schedule. So I started doing rock climbing, which I really love. I never got like competitive with it, but just like would go down to the gorge and climb outside. I spent a summer in Colorado and Colorado Springs, and all we did was climb. So there's always been that. I think the bodybuilding started because of like, it is time consuming. So don't take what I'm about to say like it's not, but it was a little bit more doable for me. Because when you start doing ultras, you're talking about like a 12-hour run on a Saturday. Like I can't leave my kids for that long. Yeah. Rock climbing became kind of dangerous. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, you know, if I fall, like, what are my kids
a little bit
do?
more is at stake.
Yeah. So bodybuilding felt like a little safer. And then I always had a lot of confidence issues, especially like in my youth, because I'm very pale and I'm very freckly, and like all my friends were tan, and I always like wanted to cover my body up. And in college, I would always be the person like under the umbrella with all my sunscreen on. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like go for this. Like, and I just want to have all the confidence and be in that tiny sparkly bikini. And I've always been like a tomboy and not like a girly girl. So like the thought of wearing something bedazzled and like stripper heels, I was like, I want to go do this. This will be like so out of my comfort zone for me.
So what specifically though, like you said that, you know, you're a tomboy, but you wanted to do this other kind of very feminine, I guess, kind of thing. Was it more of the feeling of like, I just want to see what that's like? Or do I like, I guess what really drew you in some ways to go like outside of that personality, if you will?
I think I just like being uncomfortable. And this is a good and bad thing. I'm never satisfied. And that goes across all aspects of my life. Like, I mean, I think I could be a millionaire and be perfect, and I would still not be satisfied with that. So I think it was just like, I knew that like girly girl was like in me. I just didn't know how to get her out. And so I think it was the combination of like wanting to have a goal for myself past 40, and then also like bringing that side of me out that I never really tapped into. And I've loved it. Like, I feel like I've gotten to know myself on a very different level. And I lost myself for so many years in being a mom that it felt really good to like build confidence, meet other women that were into it. Because in my mind, you know, like my social media gets talked about a lot. So I think like I always thought about my kids and their friends and then their friends' parents. Like, how are they going to perceive me if I share this bodybuilding journey? Or how are they going to perceive, you know, that I'm doing a back pose and I'm sharing that like with the world? And what does that look like? And trying to let go of what people think about me and the judgment. Because this is like, I'm finally like feeling really comfortable in my skin and really comfortable with like the direction that I'm going. So I've loved getting inside, like in touch with that like feminine side of myself and not just this like outdoor tomboy type of girl.
Mm-hmm. For like maybe other moms particularly who maybe have those same doubts or like questions, how do I do this in a way, you know, social media in particular, how do I do this in a way where it's like, I'm maybe okay with it, but how do I continue to, or how do I even maybe start to like, is it a conversation you have with your kids? Like, hey, you know, I'm starting to do this thing, you know, you may have people talk about, oh, your mom's doing bodybuilding or your mom, whatever, like, or maybe it's like even a dad could have maybe a similar situation as well, but I think it's a little bit different. But I mean, is that like, how did you specifically handle that?
I didn't really at first. So my kids are a little bit older. I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. And my 11-year-old, she has 2 genetic conditions, and she has autism. So like her questions are a little bit different and our conversations look a little bit different. And then my oldest one is like very open. Like we just kind of, we talk like best friends. I mean, I'm her mom, but we have a really unique relationship. So initially when I started it, I didn't really say much, like just kind of like, hey, like I want to do this. And they were supportive. And then what ended up happening is other people started saying stuff to my children. And it was really cute because I think the first time something was said to my oldest daughter, her response was just like awesome. They said something to the effect of like, what do you think about your mom being on the internet and no clothes with her butt out, all this stuff? And my daughter kind of laughed and she said, I love my mom. I think she's awesome. She was like, it makes her happy. Like, I think it's great. Like, to me, she's just a regular mom. That's all I see. She said, the only thing that I don't understand about all of it is why she has to wear the high heels. Like, I don't get those. And so after that, we had a conversation because a couple of her friends because I'm public usually, had looked at my Instagram. And there was like some talk at school And they started giving her a hard time, and they said, everybody calls your mom Iconic Mom. And we kind of laughed about it, and she went back to like, no, she's just like a regular mom. Like if you knew her, she's just regular. So I put my social media on private just for that, but we always have open conversations about it. And my kids come first. So I was like, if this is ever something that bothers you, like I'll totally get off of social media. And my daughter's like, no, like, I love that you do this, Mom. I love that, like, you found something you enjoy doing, and I love watching you do it. So they've been to my shows. My youngest one, she just, because of the autism, she's a little bit more blunt. And she's told me before, which this is not the case, she's like, your butt's just really big and it's gross. That's her take on it. And I was like, no, I'm trying to get a bigger butt, but okay, thank you.
So for you, what is the appeal, or is like the benefit do you see just from the social media aspect? And I know there's a lot of like downsides for sure when it comes to social media, but there's also, just in my own personal experience, the community aspect and the, just being able to have a positive influence on somebody else's day or journey, or, posting, whether that's like you to another person even to you. So what do you feel like you kind of gain from just being in that community online on social media?
I've actually loved it. Like the people that I have met it's been like profound for me, because for a long time I kind of pulled away from being social, like at all. Like I was very much a homebody. I just got my kids where they needed to be, and that was my life. Like there was nothing outside of that. So being on social media, the people that I've met some girls that like we've met online and we've talked, and, we send memes every day, and, we have this like little community. And then when I got to nationals, I got to meet them in real life. And I was so curious how like behind stage at nationals it was going to be, because now you're talking about some elite girls. It's not like a regional show. It's a different vibe. And you get back there and there's just hundreds of girls, and they're all gorgeous. And I thought like it would be catty, and it wasn't. It was like so welcoming, and it was like, oh, we've talked online, or oh, I've like followed your journey. You look amazing. And it was so supportive. I've never been around women that support each other that way. Like usually there's some sort of cattiness or competitiveness, and it wasn't like that. And even in the gym, like I go to Everyday Athletes, and the women there, we just have like this little crew. And even if we don't talk every day or we don't work out together, like, you kind of give each other a heads up, or, you'll get little messages like, I hope prep's going well, or how are you? Do you need anything? And I've been blessed because of social media and because of starting to compete to have such a strong, like, support system of women around me. And that's been like huge for me.
Yeah. Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. Well, that's something we actually talked about yesterday. Richard Sparks brought up this concept of the idea that like it's a singular sport and you're in it by yourself in a way, like you're doing all the work, but you won't be allowed to do it by yourself. It's just you need, whether it's friends, it's family, it's a coach, it's whatever is around you that's really making it possible to do what you're doing.
Yes, that part's huge. I'm blessed. Like my family's awesome. And like my mom is like my ride or die. So she helps a ton. And yeah, being at home, like, my kids have been great. Like everybody's been great with it. So I've been lucky. You're right. Like the working out, the eating, stuff like that. Like for me, that's easy because that's black and white. Like I do great with boundaries and like, here's what you're going to do. Like I stay on a meal, like plan. I don't do macros all year just because I like that. Like structure is great for me. So having people around you that like get this is what you're doing, and I don't put what I'm doing on them. Like I don't make my kids eat chicken and rice. I get asked that all the time. I'm like, oh, they're 14 and 11. No, like I make them their meals and then I have mine. And yeah, it's nice to have people that'll, hey, do you need some rice? I'm cooking rice. I'll, make you some. Like my husband does that a lot. Or I'm going to bake some chicken. Do you need any? Having that. And then my mom has been great at like picking my kids up from school so that like when I leave work, I can go work out before I come home. And that's like 90% of prep. Like once you're past a certain age, I mean, once you have a career, kids, a life, like bodybuilding's one piece of it. It's not the whole thing.
For sure. It's funny because a lot of people who, I talk to at a high level of bodybuilding, it's very similar. It's like, I also have a career and I also have a family, and bodybuilding is, even though I might step on the Olympia stage this year, like I still consider it pretty much a hobby, and a lot of people don't see it that way, especially when they're first getting into it or they're trying to get to that level. They see it more as like, if I have anything else in my life, it's going to be a distraction. It's going to harm, my success in this sport. It's going to keep me away. And to a certain degree, like on paper, that does sound right and it sounds good. But I think from so many different angles, you have to have something else in your life. Like there's a mental side too, that if you get totally consumed by this thing, you get I think you start to lose some of those, like it's the, what's the thing where it's like too much of a good thing, I guess, like the good thing is going to only be good if you have other good things in your life too.
Yes. 100%. I totally agree with that. And it kind of like when I started this, I mean, I had this too with marathon running. It's nice to see there are like people you don't even know support you. I was having a rough day at the gym, and I'm not like a very emotional person. I'm pretty even. I wish I was more emotional a little bit. I was just having a rough day, and I was kind of like tearful warming up, which has never happened. And I know Autumn Cleveland. We're not best friends. I don't have like this, we hang out type of relationship with her. And she came up to me and she handed me a painting. And she was like, I can tell like you're really going through it. Like, and when I was going through it, I painted this and I just want to share it with you. You don't owe me anything. And it had like the neatest note on the back. And that day I'm like looking at it. I think I tried to read that note like 5 times and I just like started crying. I was like, I can't even get through this. And she gave me the biggest hug ever. And she just like held me. And this is a person like I know, but I don't know that well. Mm-hmm. That same week, it was just kind of a rough week. Like Donna, she's an Olympian. She's amazing. We always say we need a daily dose of Donna. She saw that I was kind of like having a rough time, and she came up and she was like, I have a basement that's like fully furnished. If you ever just like need a time out, like you can just come stay in my basement. So here are all these people that like you don't even realize are supporting you and that they're in your corner and like rooting for you. And I just think that's been like so awesome about this. Mm-hmm. And then, going to work too, my work's pretty stressful. It's pretty busy. But my coworkers are awesome. We always have like candy, cookies. I mean, we work in healthcare, so there's like donuts everywhere all the time. And they kind of always laugh because I'll like walk by the table that has all of it. And they're like, are you going to eat any? I'm like, absolutely not. I might smell it and look at it, so they give me a hard time, but like in a cute, like supportive way as well.
Mm-hmm. Has there been along the journey at all, like did you have to specifically call the person out if there is, but like any relationships or even like distant relationships that's like, you did get a genuine hard time from, or like that weren't supportive or that questioned, why are you doing this? This is, blah, 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 or anything like that?
Oh yeah. Cause I'm going to be 43 this year. So I get a lot of like, you're in a midlife crisis. You're not a great mom. You're not a great wife. You're not prioritizing certain things. And some of this is like from people I don't even know. Like I've gotten some like, DMs that like, I just laugh about, to the point that I've thought about like, me and my best friend said we're going to start a podcast and we're going to read these DMs out loud and just like kind of give like our response to them in a funny way, for sure. And I think that's because some people don't understand it. Like we're all built different. Like I said, I'm a type of person, I'm never satisfied. I'm very competitive. I grew up in a very abusive home. My mom was awesome. My dad was not. And that kind of made me have like this chip, and I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss or not, but kind of like a fuck you gene is what I call it. So I'm just built that way. And other people, like their goal is to like get married, have a family, be like what I call like a J. Crew wife. And that's what they want to do. And that's awesome. Like you don't have to agree with what I'm doing and you don't have to understand it. Like I appreciate it. Like you can do what you're doing and I don't have to like it. I'm not the type of person to go out of my way and like DM somebody, especially that I don't know, and say, hey, I don't love the way you're living your life. Yeah. It's just not my place. I've had family that doesn't love it or they don't understand it. They try to support it like in a way that they can. But they kind of do like, you should be a better mom. Like what kind of role model are you like setting for your girls? Or, you know, I've been called like, you look like a slut, like you have your ass out on the internet. So yeah, there's that. But for me, like I kind of just look at it and I laugh a little bit about it and I take it with a grain of salt. And then I kind of look at it like, well, you're talking about me. So like I'm doing something right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hate to sound that way. I'm not trying to sound like I have an ego, but like if I took some of that to heart, some of the stuff, especially people that like I love, like my family members, some things that they've said to me, if I took that to heart, like I would be an emotional mess. So you just kind of have to like appreciate that that's their opinion and it's not aligning with your values and they're seeing one piece of it. Mm-hmm. They're not, you know, I choose to share the bodybuilding. So because I'm sharing it, like, then I should expect like people are going to agree with it or they're not. Like I'm putting it out there. If I'm seeing something that I don't like I'm just not going to engage with it or I'm going to remove myself. And that's like kind of in all aspects. Like I'm a fairly positive person. Like I like to think the glass is half full all the time. So if anything, like I feel like is negative or I don't enjoy, like I'm going to remove myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, like, you know, going back to the thing where people, you know, may have comments in person or whatever, even, I guess, even on social media. But I think to a big degree, a lot of people that will speak out against what you're doing. Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. The Weight Room Podcast is thrilled to announce our new sponsor, Prime Science. They're leaders in harnessing scientific research to revolutionize your fitness journey. With a firm foundation in the latest health sciences, Prime Science offers innovative products to help you achieve and surpass your fitness and health goals. These tools are more than just accessories. They're the result of rigorous scientific research aimed at optimizing your health. Dive deeper into how you can transform your approach to fitness at primescience.co.uk. Trust me, with Prime Science, you're in scientifically sound hands. In some ways, not that it's bodybuilding, but in some ways I feel like they have areas of their life that they wish they were doing something.
Yeah, I think there's a piece of that. I mean, there's been some other, like my kids' friends' parents that I've talked to a little bit about that because they're like, I would love to do something like what you're doing. Or, you know, there's been a couple that are like, I'd love to run a marathon, but I feel bad about taking that time away from my kids. And I felt like that too, especially when my kids were really little. Like when I first had them, like the first year of life, like I remember trying to go to the gym and I would get there and I would be like, I can't be here. Like I should be at home with my kids. Like I should be at home doing X, Y, and Z, or there's like laundry or cleaning. I think working in the hospital changed that for me. The reason I say that is I started to watch people come in at their worst. And I started to watch like what death looks like. And when you have conversations with people and they're reflecting on their life and they're now at end of life, or they're in a space where their life looks different, like they've lost function of their body, and you hear them say, like, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that, it started making me think about those things. And then it made me think, okay, like, what am I teaching my daughters? Like right now they're watching a mom that's at home, that frantically cleans, that probably seems OCD, that seems unhappy. They're not watching me be social. They're not watching me do things for myself. And like, this is what they're going to end up doing. Because right now I'm doing things that I think I'm supposed to be doing, not things that I want to be doing. And so at 40, it was kind of like, okay, the average patient that I see come in really sick is like 80. So I'm 40 now, and I have 40 more years of being like what I'm going to call able-bodied and like cognitively intact, where like I can travel and do things I want, right? So what do I want that to look like? Do I want it stuck in my house, cleaning, cooking, and only thinking about my children? Or do I want to show my kids, like at any age, you can set goals for yourself, you can go back to school, you can have a career change, you can do anything that you want to do, like, and that makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. So what I hope I'm showing my daughters, and when we talk about it, is that like I love them dearly and I'm here for them and I have an open door and you know, we can do all these things together, but I also have to have a little bit of me in there. Mm-hmm. And so I think when they see me go to the gym and when they see me compete, what I hope that I'm showing them is that I can still have a life too, and we can all have it together. Like I'm not having to self-sacrifice. Mm-hmm. Like I don't want them to become women that are self-sacrificing everything to appease other people. Yeah. Because I'm a people pleaser, and it's taking a lot of years for me to realize like I need to please myself. You come into this world alone. In a sense, you go out of it alone. So like when I reflect, when I'm 80, do I want to reflect and be like, damn, I really lived it up. Like I really got to be a mom. I really got to be competitive. I really got to travel and do these things I wanted to do. And I'm so happy with my life that there's nothing I would change about it. It's kind of opened a cool door too, because like now that my kids are getting older, like if I go to the gym, I'll be like, hey, do you want to go? Mm-hmm. And sometimes they'll be like, yeah. I don't force them to do it because I don't want them to feel like what I'm doing is what they have to be doing. But it's been like a cool way for us to bond and like get a different type of time together. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just because this is what I'm doing, I don't want them to feel like they have to be doing it. But I'm always going to like open the door and let them be involved in it. So my 14-year-old, she'll go to the gym with me, and I love going to the track. Like running is something that is so freeing for me. So when the weather's good, I'll be like, hey, let's go to the track and do a track workout. And she's like, yeah, let's go. And then we make like kind of a day out of it. We'll get up early on like a Saturday. We'll go run some 100s, 200s, and then we'll go to the coffee shop. Or we'll go to the bookstore. She loves books. I love books. And we'll kind of like sit and bond over that. And you don't even have to like talk that much, but just being in each other's like presence. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it opens a door for conversations I don't think that we would have had we not been doing those things. Mm-hmm. So there's ways to like integrate them into it and kind of show them a little bit about it and a healthy lifestyle. That's the other thing I want, because I watch sick people all the time. So I want them to understand. I don't want to give them like body dysmorphia, but like understanding what is real food, mm-hmm. understanding what is, you know, being active, and then understanding what's a treat and when your body needs rest, kind of teaching that aspect in a real way too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what people, and especially kids, respond to best and most, in my opinion, is like if they see someone they're looking up to doing it, then they're going to be more likely to involve themselves in that in some way, or like accept that is right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But going back to, you know, specifically in your bodybuilding, you know, you mentioned the shows that you did, but what about like before? What about like building up to getting on stage and you know, maybe even, you know, going into a prep and things like that? Was it something that you were pretty confident and comfortable with at that point of like, okay, I know this is going to be what we're going to be doing in the process and all that? Or was there you know, anxiety a little bit, maybe some anxious feelings and nerves of like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be comfortable up there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, you know, even finish this prep because of XYZ things. Or like, just walk us through kind of what your experience was like in that first initial prep and then getting on stage as well.
It was weird. It was all the things, because after coming out of these thoracic surgeries, they were so intense. And the second one was very intense. I had a condition called bilateral thoracic outlet syndrome, which is, it took like 15 years to diagnose. Like it took to the point I like functionally couldn't use my arms to get it diagnosed. So those surgeries were a lot. So like going through that mentally was so tough. Like, and there was a lot of personal stuff going on in my life that was so tough that it was like, I felt like if I didn't do this for myself, like I was going to end up in a major depression. And that really scared me because I'm not a depressed person and I could feel it coming. So almost immediately after that second surgery, I think in a week of being home, I like reached out to Neil and I was like, I need this. Like, I've got to do this. I have got to have something that's like giving me a little bit of hope and is going to get me out of the house. So my mental state was not great starting. But as soon as he sent me the plan, I was just like, I fucking got this. I got this so hard. Like, I'm going to kill this. And that was my mentality starting, I think it was October that we started, somewhere around there. And we started, and I ended up going to Spain for vacation. And I mean, when I was in Spain, I went so hard. Like, I got to enjoy Spain, but I still stayed on prep, and it felt so good. Like, it was so empowering. So once that started, it was like a snowball effect, like a domino effect. Like my confidence, the way I felt, getting excited about the gym, my food, all of that, it just like really amped up. Where I struggled the most is kind of the physical appearance, like, and the posing. Like, I was not comfortable with posing. I met with my friend Carrie. Carrie has probably been like the meat and potatoes of my posing. She helped me so much because she has so much confidence and she's done this for so long. So she was super helpful. I met with Autumn. Autumn was awesome. And then Ashlyn. So those three, they helped me a lot, but the posing really, like, I was so terrified of. So leading up to the stage, I was so scared about getting on that stage. And I was a disaster. I mean, I was so blonde the day of the Kentucky Cup. And I felt like people were talking to me, but it was like a Charlie Brown episode where it was like, wah, 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 wah. Like, you're talking to me, but I don't know what you're saying. And I just remember being backstage, and there was a guy back there, and he's like hyping me up. He works for Kentucky Cup. And he said, whatever you do not pose at the back of the stage. And he is like harping this. He's like, you walk to the front, you do your thing, you get off. You hear me? And I was like, I hear you. And what do? I walk to the back of the stage and I start posing. I mean, I messed it up so bad. And one of the things Autumn told me, she said, if you mess up, just own it and like give it your personality and have so much fun with it. So I'm at the back of the stage posing after this man told me 1,000 times not to do it. And one of the workers comes up and she's like waving me like, you idiot. And I don't know why I reverted back to this, but I was a ladybird. And I guess the last time I've been on a stage is when I was a ladybird. So literally I look at her, I like kind of cover my mouth, and then I look up, I smile real big, and I like throw up an L. And then I just like walked to the front and got through it. I ended up winning. So that was great. But I think leading up to it, like the workouts, the food, all that's so easy for me. It was feeling confident in my skin, being naked on a stage basically, and trying to figure posing out. Because the thing that I learned about it is that you don't have to have the best body. I don't have to have the biggest glutes. I don't have to have the, those cap shoulders. But if I can create an illusion with my body, like, we're golden. What that bodybuilding is about is who can create the best illusion on that stage and who can give it the most personality. And if you sit and you watch a show, like, you'll gravitate to the people that just like, they're just showing so much of their personality. And it's not the hottest girl or the hottest guy. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to learn.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. was going in, did you kind of have a feeling that posing was going to be tough, or was it just that day?
No, I knew. And I don't know why, because I mean, my life has been ballet, cheer, dance, gymnastics. Like, you would have thought that would have been like a natural thing. I think my lack of confidence really hampered that. I mean, I'm just like, now I'm starting to get a lot of it, but I just didn't have it for so many years. So yeah, I knew, and me and Neil talked about that. The other thing that came with it is, so with those thoracic surgeries I had, they're laparoscopic. So, and we had to do 2 separate ones because I had it on both sides. So I literally have incisions like from my shoulders all the way around, and they cut into your intercostal tissue. So what happens when they do that is all this scar tissue lays around your rib cage. So if I don't warm up, if I don't foam roll, if I don't stretch, like trying to turn my body, because you want your upper body to turn in a different way than your lower body. So you want them to move separately. I have so much scar tissue that's hard. So getting that like good twist is a lot, and I knew that was going to be difficult. Yeah. When you're on the stage too, you don't have a mirror to give you feedback. So like I try to practice without that sometimes and get a feel for it. Neil helped a lot with that. I mean, I did do a lot of posing with, like I said, Carrie, Ashlyn, and Autumn. But when I got to nationals, Neil and I met the day before just to go through posing. And I don't know why I all of a sudden had like this big aha moment, because you want it fluid, right? Like, you want to get up there and it be fluid, and you don't want to look like a robot, and you don't want to look stiff. You want to look like you're doing a little bit of a dance in a way. And I was practicing with Nellie, she does wellness, and Neil at nationals. And Neil, out of nowhere, he's like, you just gotta turn your shoulders towards me and like pull your stomach down. And that's been said to me. And all of a sudden it just like that. And I was like, I got it. And he's like, this arm, he's like, why is it flailing out here? You know, it doesn't need to go that high. And so sitting in that hotel room, it was, my posing changed a lot after meeting with him. So I think it's like getting the right people in your corner, and just like, you know, you have to lay that muscle memory, right? Like, I worked in athletics for a long time. I went back to school as an adult to be an occupational therapist. But when I worked in sports, I did strength and conditioning preseason typically. And we just did a lot of like getting your reps in, right? Like, you want to get in so many reps that you've laid this blueprint of how you're going to do it to the point that it takes no thought. Like, it is like tying your shoes or brushing your teeth. It is just what you do. So that's where like I try to take my head with posing. I try to think about it like that. Like, okay, when I worked with football players, and you know, we worked on different reps of like what they needed to do during the game. Like, that's like what I need to work on with my posing. Yeah. So I did do a lot of it in the mirror at first, and then I would pull the mirror away and go through it, and then I would video it. I would send it to Carrie and Autumn and get their feedback and Neil's feedback, and then I'd try to make like those tweaks. And sometimes I'd just stand in front of the mirror and practice with like just my foot placement alone, like just trying to get those reps in, so that when on the day of the show, you're out of it. Like, and I didn't even have a bad cut. Like, I'm naturally just kind of a small person, thank God. But your brain, and you're dehydrated, you're ready for some carbohydrates. Like, you just feel like shit that day. So like, even if you're calm, your thought process is not great. So I wanted it so automated that when that thought process wasn't good and I got on that stage, I didn't do what I did at Kentucky Cup. So I think it went a little bit better at nationals than at North American. I still have a lot of work to do. How did you mentally go into the second show after, you know, the first one, where you said that you kind of did the opposite of really what you wanted to do? 2 weeks before, no, it was maybe the week before nationals, I had a check-in, and I had been really stressed. And Neil's going to kill me for saying this, but he's never yelled at me. And I checked in and he said, "You look like a fucking water sausage." I don't even know what that means, but I guess I was stressed and retaining water. And he said, "Get your shit together." And I respond well to that for whatever reason. And I was like, okay, like, I got to get my mind right. Like, I got to get out of my head. I got to like let my life stuff go right now and like put some blinders on. So I told myself going into nationals, I didn't care if I took, there was like 30 something girls in both my categories. If I take 30th place, like as long as I did my best, I did everything that I was told to do, like I can walk away enjoying this experience. And so I tried to look at it very positively and let the anxiety go. Like I can't control what's going to happen on that stage in a way. Okay. Like, so go enjoy yourself. Your coach has prepared you. You've prepared yourself. You've put all this time and effort in it. Don't screw yourself because you're so anxious. So I just, like that day after that conversation, I let all the anxiety go. And then I just focused on like, be in the moment and take in this experience. And so when I got up to Pittsburgh, I had never met her. One of my teammates, Nellie, she does wellness. She's one of the few people I'm taller than, so that was awesome. Her and I hung out when I got up there, and she was such like a brush, I can't even talk. Like she was just like fresh air for me. And she just took away all of my anxiety, and I just got at peace. So on show day, like I remember being backstage and being nervous, but being so excited. And I think that was the difference. Like at Kentucky Cup, I don't think I was so excited. I think I was nervous. Like I was scared. And then when I got to nationals and I saw all these beautiful women and I got to connect with all these people, it became so much about the experience. And I had done so much work with posing that I was like, when I get up there, like I'm going to look good. Like I am. So just like let it go. And walking on stage, like when you go out and you do your like little solo dance, it felt so good and it felt so natural and it felt so fluid, and all that just like left me. So that experience was like, it was so much better than Kentucky Cup. But I think that a lot of times we just get in our head and then we make ourselves more anxious than we need to be. And we start looking at other people and we start comparing ourselves. Like at nationals, there was, girls in open, they're 20 years old. And I like felt myself a little bit try to compare to that. And I'm like, she's 20. Like you're 42. You've had 2 children. Like
the Weight Room Podcast is proud to be partnered with Prime Science, our new sponsor and a trailblazer in health technology. Prime Science is dedicated to pushing the boundaries of what's possible in health and fitness through extensive research and scientific validation. Their products are a testament to their commitment to safe, scientifically backed health optimization. To learn more about how Prime Science is redefining fitness with valid science, visit primescience.co.uk. Join us in embracing a future where fitness meets rigorous scientific practice with Prime Science.
You have a house and bills and all these things, like you're not going to look like that. Like don't do that to yourself. So I think letting go of some of that helped too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I recently had Whitney Jones on, and 3-time Olympian winner. She said her biggest kind of cheat code, I guess, if you will, of her success was having no expectations and just going in and doing, like even just the whole process. Like this is something that's supposed to be fun. This is something that I get to do. All those kind of like mental, not tricks, but just kind of mindset shifts, I guess. And it kind of sounds like you had the same thing maybe in that national show where it was like, okay, there are so many great competitors here. I don't necessarily expect to come out and win. I don't necessarily expect to. Now, if I do, obviously, like everybody gets on the stage maybe wanting to win, but there's a difference in wanting to do something versus it's expected that it happens. And when, especially in a sport like bodybuilding, where your expectations of winning, like you can control, like you said, you do have some control, but not really, because it's up to the judges and it's up to whoever comes as well. Like you don't play defense in bodybuilding. You only get to bring what you can bring, and you can't change what anybody else is going to do or how anybody else's genetics are or whatever, or maybe just what somebody, even if it's like a close call, first to second, like you don't get to decide what those judges, what that group of people believe that single day. Now let me actually go enjoy the thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah, and that's how it was. Like, it was such a cool experience. Like, I think, like, it's about managing your expectations and, like you said, like, letting them go to an extent. And just, I think as humans, we don't always enjoy the experience. We do set expectations of what we want it to be. And then we're in this world where everything's, like, immediate now. And so you're already, before you've even had one experience, you're on to the next, right? And so I just want it to be present and grounded in it, and really just have something cool to take away from it. And I feel like I got to do that. I did obviously want to win my pro card. As soon as I got there and I saw how different it was from like a local show, I was like, if I get first call outs, I'll be like so pumped. And I did. And that for me was like winning. Like, it was awesome. And then when we went to North American, I wasn't really ready for North American. That experience was not as great, but that was kind of on me. We hadn't planned to do North American. We just talked about nationals and then taking a year to grow. And then every week I would check in. He was like, oh, okay. Like, maybe. And I think it was like 14 days out from North American. And Neil was like, let's go. And so I had like 14 days to like put my head back in the game a little bit. Like, I was kind of checked out of like prep and like ready for all my cheat meals and stuff. So going in, that was a little bit different. But yeah, as I get older, I really am about taking in the experience, learning what I can learn from other people, and just constantly growing. Like, right now, all I want to do is grow. I want to grow as a mom. I want to grow in my career. I want to grow in however long I choose to do this bodybuilding thing. And I don't know really what's next. Like, if I'll stay with this, or like I'll find something else I want to go be competitive in. I just really like challenging myself. And I like to set goals. And once I reach those goals, then it's kind of like, okay, now what can I do next? I guess for me, it was like reflecting on like, one, what is possible, but then like, two, like, I have to have like that space for me. And then I want to be able to share that. Like, and I want to be able to share it with other people that enjoy the same things. And like you said, whether that's growing a business or doing bodybuilding or running a marathon, whatever it is, being able to share that with like-minded people, and then getting yourself in rooms with people that kind of have the same thought process as you. Yeah. I think a lot of people think bodybuilding's narcissistic and you're selfish and, you know, you're into yourself and it's an envy thing. And I don't think that's what it is. I think it's about growth. And going through this bodybuilding process, like, I've been able to network. I've met other people that have helped me with other things in my life. And going through this, it's shown me like what's possible. Yeah. I can do whatever I want. And it comes down to like, what do I want to prioritize? And then where do I want to put my energy? I think for some people, it's hard for them to look at like, you got to put your energy in the things that are most important to you. And it doesn't have to be just one thing, you know, like my energy goes into my kids, into my friendships, into bodybuilding, into my work, into my growth. And it doesn't have to be just one solid thing. Like, yeah. it can expand. And having like going back to work, I mean, my job has taught me so much about aging. I thought your life was over like when you were 30. Like, you know, when you're in your 20s, that's kind of how you think, because you know, when you're young, you're focused on like, okay, what college am I going to go to? What career am I going to make for myself? And then you get the career and you get the family and you get the house and you go, okay, like, is this it? I'm supposed to be fulfilled and be happy all the time. Like, that's it. At least that's how I felt. And I wanted more. And my favorite patients at work are my 90-year-old women. And sometimes we'll trade patients. And they always laugh at me. I'm like, I'll give you this patient if you give me your 90-year-old female. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you do not make it to 90 unless you are a badass bitch. And these women that I meet, like, they are so full of life at 90. Yeah. They are so cognitively intact and they are so with it. And what they've like shared with me most of them still, like, some of them still work at like Dollar General, or they volunteer at their church. They're still very social. They're still doing things that matter to them. Mm-hmm. And they have the best attitude and the best outlook on life. And starting some of this bodybuilding stuff, I thought about that. I had one patient in particular that made me think about that, because she said, you know, I love to have a great attitude because you get one life, and the only way you get through it is through. And she said, I could be positive or I could be negative. Either way, I got to go through it. And she's like, so I just choose to be positive, and I choose to be social, and I choose to be active. She was 93 years old. She taught a chair yoga class. She mall walked every day. She did communion at her church, and she led a prayer group. Wow. And I just thought, like, that's so cool. Like, she's 93, and she has all these goals.
Doing more than most people are doing.
Yeah, and she's still driving, right? So, like, I know that's kind of like a long, you know, reach, but when I met her, I really, like, that kind of like stuck with me and sat with me, and I was like, that's awesome. Like, even if my goal was just to, like, give communion at church, like, that's still a goal, that's still purpose.
Something to do that gives your life meaning, and, you know, you feel good about it. It gives you value. It gives you a little structure. Like, there's so many benefits to the smallest of things that we can interact with. But before I did this podcast, I always was interested in, like, podcast and, like, having conversations with people. And one of my ideas was I wanted to go to, like, senior homes or whatever, and, like, just do short interviews with people that were there, you know, get their, whether it's war stories or depression stories or whatever, you know, Great Depression stories or whatever, Vietnam stories, like all those kind of stories that people, you know, went through the craziest of times back in the day.
I would listen to that podcast because and even my confused old patients, they're awesome. Like, there's so much takeaway. And talking about, like, the war. So, like, this is such a silly tattoo. I get asked all the time if I love sailors. But my one grandfather was in World War II, and he was a POW in Germany, and he received the Purple Heart. And then my other one was in Pearl Harbor. And when I was younger, I think I was like 23, 24, was not in a great space. And I had a bucket list, and on it was run a marathon. That's how running started for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take, like, this energy, and I'm going to put it towards something on my bucket list and make it something great. And during that time period, my grandfather that was in World War II, he actually had started writing a book. It was really cool. And so I would go over, like, once a month, and him and I would just sit and talk. And I'm like, I want to hear about your experience. Like, what happened during World War II? Like, I don't want to read this in a history book. Like, I want to hear it from you. Mm-hmm. And they made him do some crazy stuff. I mean, they, like, stripped him of all his clothes in the middle of Germany in winter time. And he had to dig graves for his, for people that were captured with him. And then they made him shoot a couple people. And he talked about that. And he said, I was lucky. They took my clothes and they told me to come back from where I came from, and they sent me off to walk. Wow. And he ended up being found, and, you know, he was not well when they found him, but he came out on top. And my biggest takeaway from those conversations, he said to me, you know, your brain is going to give out long before your body. And you just have to remind yourself of that. Like, you have to, like, kick into, like, that next gear and just tell your brain to shut up. Mm-hmm. Like, because your body can do more. So before I ran my first marathon, Chicago was the first one I ran. That played on repeat in my brain. Like, okay, during this race, it's going to get hard. But, like, it's not going to be as hard as being a POW. Like, I just kind of went back to our conversations. So before I did that race, I was like, I really want to get a tattoo. Like, and I put it here because this is, like, where my watch at the time went when I was running. And it sat underneath it. And so during that race, I remember when it would get, like, so hard and I wanted to quit and, like, I was cramping up, I would look down at that and I'd be like, I fucking got this. And I, like, would hear him telling me about those stories. And even to this day, like, I think about that. Like, when my life is really hard, I go back to a lot of our conversations where we sat at his kitchen table and talked about that type of stuff.
Yeah. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. That's just really fascinating to like hear that stuff firsthand. My grandpa was also in World War II. He didn't talk about his experience very much, my dad said, and never really shared it with anybody else either. He was in Normandy on D-Day though, and just being in that time period at all, like, when things are literally do or die, it's just like it gives things so much value.
Yes.
It's like the hustle and bustle of the world, and you have to pay your bills, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, but you also want to like have some sort of like deep purpose in your life too.
Yeah, and I think that's what that's what I see with people that do well at the hospital. They have purpose. It's the people that don't have purpose that when they come in, those are the ones that usually die. So the purpose part of life is more important than anything, I think. And it doesn't matter what your purpose is. I think if you're a dog walker, you really find meaning in that, then that's your purpose. So finding your purpose and your people and the people that you want to be around, I think that's the most important. And when I used to do ultras, after my first one, I said, everybody should run an ultra. Not because you want to be a runner. I hate going out for long. I would never go out for a long run now. I'd rather do anything but that. The reason I say that, because I think there's different parts of your brain that you tap into when you go through stressful situations or adversity, whatever that adversity is, that kind of changes you, and it kind of gives you a confidence of I didn't know I had that in me. And I ran a 50-miler in Pine Mountain, Georgia years ago. And on that run, I really got to know myself. If you're stuck in the woods all alone and there's not another soul for 4 hours, you tap into a space in your brain that I did not even know existed. And it was the coolest experience. And I still use that race. That race taught me a lot about myself and everyday things at work and bodybuilding as a mom. I will never forget it. I think I was 35 miles in.
It's crazy.
And Pine Mountain's intense. They no longer do this race because it was that intense. I don't know if you know who Dean Karnassus is. He ran it the elite people ran. I still can't believe I got through it. But I came to this, I'm going to call it a hill, but it was straight up. And I was oh my God, I can't even walk. I'm going to have to crawl up this. And I sat at the bottom of the hill and I just had a meltdown. And it's just me in the middle of the woods. And I'm I'm not going to make it up. I'm going to die. And here comes this guy. He's this. And people come from all over the world to do these. It's not just Americans. It's everybody. And he was an older Chinese gentleman. And he just looked at me and he said, "You got this. Just follow me." And this guy looked like he was 70. He was way older than me. And I was I looked at him, I said, I don't have this. And he was you do. You do. And we crawled on all four up this hill to the top. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "See, you got this." And he just took off. And it was and at one point I was did I hallucinate that guy? Was he really there? I don't know.
Chinese Jesus, there he is.
Yeah. And then he was gone. I didn't see another human for 3 more hours. But I kind of do that now and day. When things get hard, I'm you can do this. You can do hard things. You think you can't, but you can. And then when you get over this hump, it'll be better on the other side of it.
Yeah, that's crazy. What are your goals for this year? Are you looking to just continue to grow? Are you looking to compete? What are you looking to
We're
do?
We're going to compete. Neil made me a little nervous that 2 or 3 weeks ago I checked in and he's "Man, I could just throw you into any regional show." And I was whoa. I thought we were just doing national masters. So we had a little bit of conversation about doing open. And I got to get out of my head with that. Cause I go back to I'm a 40-year-old body. I'm not a 20-year-old body. And what does that look like? So I did a little bit of that. And I was okay, let it go. If he throws you into something, just we're going to do the same thing. We're going to enjoy the experience and you're going to focus on you and that's it. Put blinders on. But right now the plan is to compete again in July at nationals. And then hopefully I'll get my pro card. If not, then we'll probably go back to North American and redo it all over again. So kind of like what we did last year. I'm enjoying this like growth phase right now. Putting weight on is hard for me. I don't know why, it just is. So a lot of work and a lot of eating, a lot of force feeding. So those are for competition. Like those are my big goals. And then in work, I've been offered an opportunity to start being a hand therapist, which is really difficult and it's very expensive. It's kind of like returning to school. So I've had a really cool opportunity come my way. We're going to get that started on April 16th. I cannot wait. And something else that I'm doing, I can't believe I'm doing it. It's going to sound selfish. I haven't traveled alone, like just me, independent of my family and kids since my 20s. I think the last time I traveled by myself, I was like 25 maybe. And I'm going to fly out to California on Friday and just spend like 5 days. And I don't think I'm even going to do anything. There's something about like the ocean that's so like healing for me. And I think I'm just going to go be near the ocean. I'm going to San Diego.
Okay.
And just kind of like take like a chill moment.
Yeah.
And then when I come back, like just all ready for nationals.
Gotcha. That sounds pretty fun. I really appreciate you coming in. It was great getting to chat with you and, learn a little bit about you and your journey and where you are and where you're headed.
Oh, thank you. I love being here. I was like really nervous about it. I was like, I use my hands a lot. I stutter and he's like going to video it. And, I was like, again, that's what I do. I get in my head and I was like, no, just like go share your story. Like someone out there will relate to it. I've listened to your podcast and you've had a lot of really incredible people on like that. There's been a lot of takeaways for me, like in my life and then in workouts and in bodybuilding and, hearing what other people go through. A lot of times I think we think we're alone in situations and then you hear other people talk about it and you're like, oh, okay, like I'm not all alone. Like this is actually like everybody kind of goes through this and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the goal of this podcast is to do just that. So I'm glad you're gaining value from it and I hope that, others out there are as well. And if you want to, before you head out, if you want to share your socials or whatever you want to share, you can do that.
Well, I'm really lame because I can only do one social media. Like I have one, that's it. I only have Instagram. I've been asked to get on like Snapchat and TikTok and I'm like, that just sounds like a full-time job. But my Instagram is at Sarah with an H .Camille, but the L's are ones.
Gotcha.
And I follow you. So, anybody that follows you can probably find me.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.